Joining me now, Sam and Ethan. Sam from Light Years, a Golden State Warriors podcast, and Ethan from House of Strauss, two hardcore, lifelong Warriors fans and reporters. Brought them on to bust my balls about being wrong about the Warriors and to discuss this series, which is now 3-1 after the Warriors won on Monday night. Ethan, you're back to being a Warriors fan now, huh?
Yeah, in a different way. I do enjoy the games. I do watch them differently. Also, I would say you can't celebrate too early, right? I mean, that road 3-up, 3-1. We don't even have to invoke 2016, but that road up 3-1 is a different case. At the same time, KOC, I do think we should bust your balls a bit on it. I feel, and I'm saying it this way, you're a great analyst. I completely think that you were reasonable in your opinions about the Warriors, about how this is done and unsalvageable. That is a reasonable opinion at the time that you had it.
Especially given the way they were playing at the time. Steph and Draymond were not what they are today.
Especially. And you can only know what you observe. The part that you deserve some mild criticism for, I feel like you doubled down and chose the Rockets because of that initial take and not wanting... am I wrong? Am I wrong? You can tell me I'm wrong. You can tell me that you completely looked at the series and you analyzed it with total objectivity, and I will not understand how you came to the conclusion of trusting Jalen Green over Steph Curry. But I'll give you the floor.
I'm out now on Jalen Green. That's for damn sure. 3 out of 4 games in single digits. I think I overestimated the youth on Houston. We know their defense is great. Houston's defense has been great in this series. They've held Steph in check twice in the series. They've done a good job, about all you could ask for. Where I overestimated Houston was Şengün's ability against Draymond Green and Jalen Green having just one great game. I thought he could have 2 great games, maybe 3 great games, but he's been absolutely horrible in 3 of the 4 games. He had the 138-point game. So I think I overestimated the young guys. Amen Thompson as well. Look, until game 4, he was a major negative for the Rockets. In game 4, he scored a little bit. They had collectively more success against Steph and Curry. But ultimately, Ethan, I think I overestimated Houston. And maybe there was part of it, though, with some wishful thinking there, that my months-long take about the Warriors being a first-round exit. But ultimately, Sam, I feel like you talk about this with Light Years, the Goons. I'm a Tom Brady fan. And with Tom Brady, you always get a chance. And with Stephen Curry and Draymond Green, you always get a chance. And that's where I underestimated the Warriors.
Yeah, I mean, the system works. Like, what they want to do has worked for the better part of a decade, pretty much since Steve Kerr came in and, installed that offense, which has evolved over time to be all essentially about Steph's gravity, whether he's on ball, off ball, everything is just kind of leveraging him dragging 2 to 3 defenders and creating easy looks for everyone. And then on the flip side, like, the defense has just evolved around, Draymond's the best defender of his generation. And take advantage of his IQ and versatility. In general, if they've had workable pieces around those 2 guys, they've been a tough out or just win it all. That's kind of been the thing. And pretty much since they've got Jimmy, it's hard to not look at him and be like, okay, they are relying heavily on some 22-year-olds, Moses Moody, Brandon Pajemski, I think Quentin Post might be 24, but he's 22 in spirit, just to match those guys too. They are relying on a lot of youth, but in general, the formula works, and you get them into a playoff series against a young team, a team who I don't really know who their best offensive player is. I mean, I guess it's Şengün, but they don't feel like they have an actual first option, and they certainly don't have anyone who commands a double team in any capacity. I just feel like I think people overanalyzed it because Houston had been so fun to watch during the regular season, playing that hard, playing such good defense. And yeah, to your point, it's like next round. I mean, I kind of like the way they would match up against both teams, to be honest with you. Like, they match up well against Minnesota all year. And, the Lakers, they can't guard anyone. So I don't see why it would stop at this point.
I totally agree with you, Sam, but your co-host Andy Liu fears that Laker matchup, and I feel like it's just funny the way, because he thinks like a fan. You try to look at it dryly and analytically. I think you would even prefer, if the Warriors do make it to the next round, you would prefer going against the Lakers this iteration against the Wolves. The Wolves are scarier, even if they've got some vulnerabilities. But emotionally, from a Warriors perspective, you could not emotionally handle Steph losing to LeBron in what might be the final tilt. And I think just as far as emotional protection, you could handle losing to the Wolves in round 2, but you couldn't handle losing to the Lakers in round 2.
100%. But then there's the other side of it. The win against a LeBron team feels a lot better than the win against, who dislikes Ant at this point? He's got to have highest approvals. He doesn't have haters at this stage. You know, he hasn't reached that point where there's like specific fan bases that are like, man, I can't stand this guy. He's universally approved.
It would be interesting to see Anthony Edwards go through Luka and LeBron and then go through the Warriors in round 2. I think that makes that series feel like it has bigger stakes, though, because you're talking about like a passing of the baton if Anthony Edwards gets through all these guys.
That's kind of isn't that what we've wanted for a while? Because it feels like the NBA still revolves around the old guys.
Yes.
And it's mostly because none of the young guys have actually like put them out to pasture. So, if Anthony Edwards ran through the Lakers and then, made the Warriors look old and did the same thing to them, then, the whole face of the league or whatever you want to say, like he would be that young guy who people are like, oh, this is the next guy. So from that standpoint, it'd be super compelling.
I feel like we're always anticipating that passing of the baton, but it rarely actually happens. And sometimes, I'm thinking about LeBron against Paul George like a decade ago, that, here comes the young Paul George. And then eventually, I don't know what Paul George becomes. The baton becomes a podcast microphone down the road. But maybe it will be like that. And it will have that narrative arc of Edwards is young and he gets the old guys out of here, but he's somebody whose career could burn fast and quick, and you never really know with these things. It happens so rarely that the young upstart superstar has a moment where he supplants the older superstar in the way that we used to see with Michael Jordan against the Pistons and the Pistons against the Celtics. It just doesn't, for whatever reason, it hasn't gone that way as often in this NBA.
And everyone
kind of
lasting longer.
The Grizzlies against the Warriors.
The players are just lasting longer, and that's true with these offensive megastars, face of the league types of players. It's also true with Draymond Green. He's still the best defender in the world right now, and I thought that was apparent in Game 4. That was my number one takeaway from the game. Like, Steph, off night, 17 points of 6 of 13. Pod steps up with 26. Butler, 27 points. Huge second half after him and Dylan Brooks were going at it, which was funny at the end of the first half. But Draymond, this was vintage Draymond.
Unreal.
I thought it was vintage elite masterclass on defense in the same way it was for Steph offensively in games 1 and 3. Had all the classic Draymond stuff. He was mean mugging and yapping and legs and arms nearly ejected. And
the most Draymond game.
Yes, in every way. I felt like I thought he got in Houston's heads, especially Şengün, because Şengün, looking at the numbers, in Game 4, he's 9 of 15 from the field against everybody not named Draymond. And then he's 3 of 13 against Draymond. Şengün couldn't move him. He looked spooked on some of the shots he got where like they're semi-open opportunities, but Draymond's around. It felt like there's a little bit of fear with him in the area. And then he takes and misses the last shot to take a lead, defended by Draymond. Was this one of the all-time Draymond performances, you guys?
Oh, yeah, so you go, Sam, but yes.
I was going to say that the part that also gets overlooked is this is my favorite Draymond quality. In the first half, he's in that scuffle. I was thinking he was going to get ejected with the Tari Eason play. I thought the first tech was soft, but it was a reputation tech. Like
and then they give a flagrant instead of a tech because it keeps him in the game.
You could just see the ref thought process. Man, we shouldn't have given him that soft tech at the beginning because now we got to kick him out. And then he has 5 fouls in the third. Steve Kerr benches him for 9 or 10 straight minutes because he has to. to be able to defend the fourth quarter with 5 fouls and to defend at that level, particularly when he was on the verge of getting kicked out multiple times, like, I can't think of anyone else who does that. Like, Ethan's right. It is the most Draymond game of all time on both ends of the spectrum. Like, walking the line, you think he's going to blow the game, because if he got ejected in the second quarter, Houston probably wins, and he pulls off a defensive masterclass in the fourth quarter with zero margin for error. Like, he had no ability to, have an accidental touch foul at that point.
There was that clip of him after the game when he went to the camera after stopping Şengün, and he said, no, not on me. And I saw a fan reply to it, because so many people hate Draymond. Pretty much nearly anybody outside of Warriors fans hates Draymond.
Half of Warriors
and
fans, too.
Half of Warriors fans. And the comment response was, unfortunately, this is aura. And I felt that captured it so well that, look, you might hate it and you might wish it wasn't so, but this guy matters, and he still matters. And even if Jalen Green is saying he's not doing anything, that speaks to a certain, we could call it casual fan perspective. If you don't think that's anything, you don't think half the game is anything. This stuff matters. This guy's great. This might seem like a hot take to some people, but I think during the dynastic run, I think he was more important to winning than Clay was, even if it was always the Splash Brothers. When it comes to all-time duos, the branding is of the Splash Brothers of Steph and Clay, but Steph and Draymond, that's the all-time duo. That's the Stockton and Malone. That's the Scotty and Mike. That's the, you're the offensive genius, I'm the defensive genius, and we work together, and we've got a telepathy to us that is not like whatever Steph and Clay had. This is the all-time duo, and it wasn't a Steph game. It was a Draymond and Jimmy game.
Would you agree with what Ethan said, Sam, about those two?
Oh, totally. It's always been about those two. I mean, look, if Draymond was 5% worse, I could think of like 5 points in Warrior history where they would be like, it's enough of this guy. Time to move off of him. Like maybe when he punched Jordan Poole in the face and they had to deal with basically an entire season of awkwardness. But they still made like what was the correct basketball decision. Jordan Poole, you're a nice young player. We liked having you, but this guy is the entire defensive system. He is an all-time player, and unfortunately got to go with talent over, feelings in that moment. I think the part that Ethan probably described best, which is the hardest for casual fans to grasp, is actually he is that good. Actually, him at his best is worth all the stuff that makes you roll your eyes and kind of cuss. I was like, God, why did he do that? Why are we dealing with these mood swings and these kind of imperfections and things you wouldn't want around the locker room? It's because in a playoff game, there's not a better defender than him engaged. And you just saw it. Steph didn't have a particularly impressive game yesterday. And Jimmy and Pods were great, but they don't win without Draymond's defense. Period. End of story.
And I think so this part's interesting to me. I saw no more impressive defensive player of the season than Amen Thompson. And I thought he was really good defensively in game 4, but he's somebody who's got aspirations for stardom. He's somebody who, if his offense isn't there, it's going to be a talking point. And you could even say the same thing with Mobley, where it's not just defensive responsibilities. I wonder if it's harder for somebody to consistently hit that peak when they've got more responsibilities. As much as people try to dismiss Draymond as triple single or whatever, I think in a way that helps him be the defensive force that he needs to be, that it's just not that much of a consideration, that it's not going to impact. I thought one of the reasons Amen Thompson was really good defensively was because he was having a good game offensively. And that's just natural. But I think for some of these all-time great defensive players, it really helps that I don't know what Tony Allen did offensively, and I don't think that's ever going to or had ever impacted what he brought defensively. And I think it's the same with Draymond. He clearly sees it as a point of pride, and what he judges himself on is the impact that he has on that end of the floor. And that pride of no, not on me. Whereas some of these other guys, they might have the talent and they might be in his class as a defensive player, but it's just not going to be their main focus in the same way.
That's a smart point. That's a really smart point, Ethan.
But yet, I'd say the interesting point on Draymond is he's not Tony Allen on offense, though. Like, he kind of is central to what they do on offense. Like, he pushes. I mean, the Draymond rip and run. Like, it's still a major part of their offense. Everything runs through him. Part of the reason he's able to get away with not being a scorer is because he's figured out how to kind of be central to the action as a screener and a playmaker, and be less reliant on like standing in the corner waiting for the ball with no one guarding him.
Doesn't this speak to the importance of fit, situation, environment for these guys? Because with Draymond, if he's not paired with Steph and Clay and KD for a time and all these great Warriors teams in this Steve Kerr motion offense, it's his offensive shortcomings might matter more in a different world.
So much of the Warriors offense is almost creating a fake offensive rebound that isn't an offensive rebound. And what I mean is this, and you see it from Draymond, you see it from Jimmy Butler. So much of the offense, unlike other teams, is running really fast to the nail and then just pivoting around and facing the arc because Steph can get free and just, juke his guy for getting open like that. That's so much of what it is. And I guess not everybody can play that way. That's not a very normal way to do offense. It's more driving kick is normal, like driving the ball and kicking it out, not drive, turn around and face the arc and find it that way. But that's how they do things. And if you're a smart enough player and that's, something that you might do, I think Jimmy Butler has fit seamlessly into it. And Draymond's been doing that for so long. And Sam's totally right. It's he isn't just a defensive player. He's got an offensive component. His offense is just a lot more frustrating on occasion. Some of the turnovers, I don't even know.
The missed layups at this point too.
The missed layups as well.
That's been the only part of the insertion of Jimmy that's been frustrating to watch. Obviously, Jimmy is also not really a 3-point shooter or floor spacer, and he's best with the ball in his hands, which means you get these weird possessions where Draymond is in the corner shooting or trying to, be more of a traditional kind of, 3-and-D guy. And no, it doesn't work. It's not fun to watch. There was they did the classic like Steph pick and roll, tic-tac-toe, only it was Jimmy rolling and the guy cutting from the corner was Draymond. And unlike, Andrew Wiggins or some of the wings they had in the back, Draymond did not get very high on the layup. And it was a very awkward looking play. It's just some of those plays are just like, I understand why everything is a ball screen around you because you as the cutter to the rim doesn't work that well.
I think in all these Warriors conversations, sometimes Steve Kerr kind of gets lost in them, especially this series, where I thought he's just completely outcoached Udoka, Houston's head coach. And, game 4, I thought he made a smart move putting Hield in the starting 5. It's kind of a sign like you have no respect for Houston's offense when you're putting Buddy Hield in the starting 5. You're just going all offense. They have an 18-1 run to start the second half. Heavier dose of Jimmy Butler right away in the second half. Udoka does nothing about it. Takes 5 minutes to put Steven Adams in the game. And then with Adams, who, look, the Adams Şengün front court for Houston has been awesome. And game 4, they played 23 minutes, outscored the Warriors 61-43 in those 23 minutes. And yet, despite that, the mere threat of hacking Steven Adams with 4 minutes, 25 seconds left, up 1, just the threat of it, he takes Adams out of the game. And I felt that was a turning point, Ethan. As soon as that happened, the Warriors start getting to the basket, 2 Butler layups, a Hield 3. They're down 1 when he gets subbed out, and then they're up 3 once Adam goes back in the game. Turning point for me, I thought, in that fourth quarter.
Fascinating moment to me in the game, because when they started doing hack at Adams, I went, man, I don't think this is very smart by Kerr. I don't think this is the right move. But then Ime blinked. He blinked. He folded his poker hand. And then you went, in a way that you can understand what the right decision is. It's similar to in football, where if you're rooting for a team, you know what the other team's decision is based on how you feel about it, where you're going, oh, they're punting? What a relief. What a relief that they're punting. I think a lot of Warriors fans probably felt that way when that sub happened. It was, oh, okay. I don't think a lot of Warriors fans, once they started doing Hackett Adams, went, hell yeah, this is going to turn in our favor. They probably were thinking he's going to get 1 of 2, maybe 2 of 2 at the line, and then you're trying to score on that set defense. I don't know if this game is going to get pulled out. That seems like it. How many fouls can you realistically spend on this as well? But Ime got scared off his spot by Kerr. That move worked just fantastically. It worked really well, and it was the turning point, and it was huge. And I do think that Kerr has made some of the big moves and Ime hasn't, and it's been a relatively close series, so it's not like everything Ime did has been bad. But yeah, I think that was an instance where Steve might be frustrating to some people, but there is a reason that he has won all these championships. Yes, we see evidence of that. By the way, playing TJD, not evidence of that, but yes, there is other evidence that we have seen.
Yeah, you gotta get your Steve is good for one. Why is this big man in the rotation move every series since the beginning of time? And it's okay,
Yeah.
No one bats 1,000. That's his one weakness right there. But
and he only has so many options. I mean,
Right.
It's part of just the symptom of the roster for Golden State. They have Post, a rookie. They have Looney, who does not look like he's Looney that we've known
Key
for
box
anymore.
out at the end, though. Key box out on Steven Adams there. Jimmy Butler does not get that rebound if Looney's not in there.
Dude, that was an amazing box out in that moment. And that Butler rebound, you see the still shot from the other baseline of that, just how high he got for the board. Credit to him. He gets hurt on a similar play in game 2, and then game 4, he comes out in that pivotal moment and jumps just like that again. Awesome play by Jimmy Butler. I felt like for the Warriors in this series, I mentioned that Houston lineup, 61-43 in game 4, the Adams Şengün lineup. If I'm looking ahead, Minnesota up 3-1, Golden State up 3-1 right now. This Houston team, Jalen Green, big dud. The 38-point game in game 2, nice, good for him. Şengün, if he's scoring against anybody besides Draymond, it's working, but it's not working against Draymond. Minnesota can do the too big thing. They can play with Gobert and Randall or Gobert and Naz Reid. They don't attack the glass in the same way that Houston does, and Steven Adams is a force at a different level with his sheer size, the toughness, the height, the width. Steven Adams is a different level offensive rebounder, and so is Şengün.
Yeah.
However, I do wonder if maybe you'd see Minnesota turn up attacking the offensive boards a little bit more than they usually do, because of the lack of size the Warriors have. And then you have Anthony Edwards, a guy who does it every single night. Better offensive presences. I do worry about that series for Golden State if it is Minnesota.
I do think you have to if you're playing the Warriors. Like at this point, the offensive rebounding thing is kind of the most effective strategy because they just simply don't have a big lineup they can go to. You can't play Looney with Draymond and Jimmy, and quite frankly, even if you could, I don't know if Looney's still that guy. Although I'll always believe in playoff Looney. But anyway, the point is they don't really have many options to go away from it. And so they're playing small and, they do wear down a little bit. I don't know if Gobert will be that effective against the Warriors because he hasn't been this series, this season. But the thing that kind of scares me about Minnesota is they can play small and still be big. McDaniels, Alexander Walker, Ant's a bigger wing, and obviously an amazing athlete. Naz Reid, Julius Randle, they'll have the size advantage on the Warriors even when they go to their small ball lineup, and they'll probably have the athleticism advantage. So they can do the same thing, only with the ability to cover more space.
Yeah, that's the tougher series should the Warriors advance than what the Lakers present, in my opinion, as said previously. I don't think it's impossible. I mean, Steven Adams, it is a different level of offensive rebounding. That guy's hands are just sticky. That guy's got to have the strongest hands. It's just insane what he pulls in there versus Gobert, who he gets a lot of offensive rebounds because of his size. But once there's traffic in there, those hands, they just turn flimsy. I'd be frustrated with it if I were a Wolves fan watching some of the offensive rebounds he doesn't come down with. So, yeah, I mean, ultimately, the Wolves are just a more balanced roster than what the Lakers have. I think this is maybe too early to make this a Laker conversation. I'm still puzzling over how so many people believed in them to the extent that they did in the aftermath of that trade. And I don't know if that's just the names on the marquee were really impressive, or they got caught up in that month of good defensive efficiency. But I'm still puzzling over the amount of pundits who figured them for title contention when maybe they'll come back in the series. I don't know. I just never saw it. I just don't see it. They don't
You answered your question. You're pairing LeBron with a player who is consensus top 5 and probably is still consensus top 5 player, not playing like it right now, but Luka, like people see that and they're like, well, it's got to work. There's just less consideration for fit. And, we talked about Draymond earlier. There is still kind of this underrating of defense as a talent. Defense is still kind of seen more as an effort thing. Like I don't think the Lakers are not playing hard. I'm sure maybe you could do some more things, but like there's realities to the defensive talent they're throwing out there. Like there's only so much you can do with some of those players with the construct that they have. So yeah, I mean, it's a bad matchup for them, but I think you nailed it. It's just people see the names and they just want to run with it.
Ultimately, they are incomplete. They made the Mark Williams trade for a reason, because Mark Williams, lob threat center, rim protector, that's what Luka is best with. That's why Dallas added those guys over and over and over again, and they don't have that on their roster. I mean, Jackson Hayes is not that guy. He's just not.
No.
He's nowhere near the level of the rim protectors and lob threats that Dallas had. So that's priority number 1 for the Lakers this offseason, is finding size.
And I would say, actually, to combine with that, it's like find a wing defender or a perimeter defender too, because it's way too easy for Ant. It's way too easy for Ant right now to just get into the lane and do whatever he wants. Now, he's an amazing player, but like they don't really have anyone who can guard him. And that's kind of the other issue they're running into. And, for the Warriors, if it does end up being Warriors-Wolves, they do have better options for who to throw at Ant to muck up the offense a little bit. They do have better
Jimmy
options
Butler.
for who to... Yeah. Or, I mean, honestly, probably Gary Payton II. That's what they've done in the regular season. I mean, there's always kind of a question of how many minutes he can play before a freak injury happens. But when he's out there, he's a very good point of attack defender. So, I don't know. Like the Lakers, to your point, incomplete's the best way to describe the roster.
I think there's this whole conversation right now about weak link theory and how in soccer it's all about having an absence of bad players. I am going here again. I did this. Okay. So I did this on Light Years, and the fans of Light Years did not like the digression into heady dorm room NBA analysis, because they wanted to bask in the Jimmy Butler alpha rebound and everything else.
It was like 10 minutes after the game. It was wrong place, wrong time. This is the more appropriate place and time.
That's how I felt. That's why I'm taking it here. But I'm wondering what wins in the NBA right now. And I wonder if I've underrated the Cavs, because the Cavs might represent more of that absence of bad players and a true strength in numbers, as opposed to these really impressive names on the marquee. However you feel about Mitchell and Garland, I don't know. And, this is this new NBA right now where I don't know, do the Celtics have a super duper star? We could get into a conversation about Tatum, but it just seems like what wins might be more that absence of weakness, and that has something to do with why the Lakers were overrated, because we're used to the old NBA where you have a few superstars, you have a few big names, and strong link is what wins. That's what we grew up with, is strong link wins. Now it's different. It's different for a variety of reasons, but it seems like you just can't have massive vulnerabilities to attack, and that's really what the game is more about these days.
I think you need both. You need both. You still need those stars. You still need mega stars, and you need them performing at the highest of levels. But you also can't have weak defenders who are attacked possession after possession, or shooters who you can sag off of. We see that with Russell Westbrook and Chris Dunn in the Nuggets-Clippers series, both of them and their respective teams. The opponents are just ignoring them, and you're playing 4-on-5. So like you saw that a decade ago. You mentioned Tony Allen earlier in the conversation, Ethan. That's really where it first started. The Tony Allen treatment, the Andre Robertson treatment with some of these guys a decade plus ago, with defenses ignoring them. So I think the weak link thing has been around for a while, personally. I just think it's been more apparent over this past year because of the Celtics winning the way they did with no weak links on their roster. And now with Cleveland, maybe that happens again, but we'll see. Will Garland be a weak link later in the playoffs defensively? Will Mitchell be a weak link defensively later in the playoffs? These are questions they're going to have to answer.
And it's defining what that weak link is. Like in 2025, it's, do you have someone who could get picked on defensively? There's some players who it's true all the time, but a lot of those are matchup based. To your point, like there's specific matchups where Garland could really be the weak link defensively. And there's other matchups where he could not, taking it back to the Warriors. Buddy Hield would absolutely be the weak link defensively if they went against a team who could attack him. He's not a weak link defensively against the Rockets because they can't attack him. They don't have those type of players. And then on the offensive side, it's shooting, right? Like, it's like, if I can just not guard you and you're standing around, like, it's hard to keep you on the floor. So I just think it evolves what the weak link is. And to your point, none of this really matters if you don't have at least one star to build around.
Yeah, and it's also the problem. You're going to find validation for weak link theory because somebody's going to play bad when a team loses, and you can identify them and go, well, that was the weak link, clearly. And so it's a little bit easy that way. And I don't know also. I feel like coaches get a little too ambitious with this whole sagging off of shooters thing, too, because these are professional NBA players. Tony Allen legit could not shoot. Some of these guys they're sagging off, I wonder if it's the right move. I know Ime was talking about that in the in-game interview where he said the guys we want to shoot are taking the shots. He had a little smirk on his face. And I think the Rockets had a good defensive performance overall, so maybe you could say it's right. But I don't know if you're doing the analytics of it all. Draymond being left completely open for a corner three, I don't know if that's good for you. I don't know if that's what you want. Gary Payton as well. Russell Westbrook, as you were talking about with the Nuggets. I don't know if I want to leave Russell Westbrook for three. I sometimes feel like coaches can get a little too old school with that and going, well, we want those guys taking those threes. It's really a little bit contextual. And if they have too much airspace at a certain point, they're an NBA player and they can knock it down. One more thing. The Warriors have a weird roster with the role players. I don't know if any of the role players outside of Kuminga, who's been mostly benched, are weak links. They're all 50-50 though. They're all 50-50 guys. I don't follow the comic book stuff. So when Jimmy Butler's talking about all those Batman and Robin and Alfred, I don't totally, but I remember there was a guy who would flip a coin. I remember that. That's how I feel about every role player.
Two-Face.
It's a coin. Two-Face. It's a coin flip because Sam, one of our friends texted us. I'll just say who it was. It was Dahmen saying, "Man, it pisses me off as he's rooting against the Warriors that they got like Buddy Hield is good on the Warriors." And I was going, I don't know if he's good on the Warriors. He's good today, and that's every one of the role players. Every one of the role players is either going to be terrible or good that day.
What do you think Buddy's shooting from three for the series?
25%. I don't know. I have no idea.
36%.
Huh.
I was surprised because like I have the last two games in my head and I'm like, 50. He's doing the Duncan Robinson, Caleb Martin thing with Miami with Jimmy Butler where he just hits everything. And it's like, no, to your point, he hit nothing in the first two games and he hit everything in the second or the third and the fourth game. So yeah, they're not the highest level of role players, which is why I could see this Warriors team making a deep run, or I could see them running out of gas. This isn't Andre Iguodala, Sean Livingston, David West, like embarrassment of riches in their prime type of Warriors. It's some young players. It's some journeyman players. They seem to like each other. They seem to be bought in, playing for one another. But like Yeah, would it surprise you if Podziemski looked every bit of a second-year player next round against the Wolves?
No.
It's a lot more shallow of a roster for the Warriors with a lot more questions. And I look forward to talking more about the Warriors in the weeks to come. Sam, Ethan, thank
Don't
you guys
lie,
for joining me
Kevin.
today,
You
man.
want them gone. You cannot have this team win the championship.
I
It's
can't
okay.
have them win the title. I can't have them win the title.
It's a tough thing. This is why I
They can
got out of the
advance.
game.
They just can't win the title.
This is why I got out of the game, man, because you know so much, you analyze it, and none of us are able to actually predict what's going to happen consistently. And yet you will be held to the standard of, oh, you're the expert, so why didn't you see this coming? It's tough, man. I feel for you, and I hope that when the Warriors win the title, people are kind to you.
Thank you guys for coming on today.
Appreciate you, man.